By now, pretty much every sneakerhead knows who Tinker Hatfield is. He's the VP of Design and Special Projects at Nike, but there's really no title that they can give to him that'll cover everything that Tinker does. Originally, he came on as the corporate architect, and in the mid-'80s, he got into designing shoes. Tinker's responsible for the Air Max 1, the Air Revolution, the Air Huarache, the Air Jordan 3 through 15, the 20, the 23, the 28, the Air Oscillate, the Air Mag. I could probably sit here for 5 more minutes listing off cool shoes that Tinker's been responsible for. So you can imagine how touched and honored and excited I was to give him a guided tour of the ShoeZeum. So let me take you back to that day. The top 7 executives, including the CEO Mark Parker and Tinker Hatfield, show up at the ShoeZeum for a guided tour. And I walk them through 40 years of Nike history. The tour was about 3.5 hours long. And then after the tour was over, 6 of the original 7 people that came to visit me headed off to the airport. And they invited me with them to check out their cool Nike jet. And of course I was honored and I had to go. So the 6 Nike executives get in their limo. I get in my Prius and start following them to the airport. But I noticed that Tinker's stuck around. And he's actually waiting outside on the sidewalk in front of the ShoeZeum. And the funny thing about that is the ShoeZeum was located right next door to a porno shop called the Adult Depot. So you can imagine Tinker Hatfield all by himself waiting on the corner, and he was waiting for his daughter and her fiancé to come and pick him up. I guess they lived in San Diego or something like that. So I see Tinker waiting on the corner, and I think, no way, this can't happen. And I say, hey, Tinker, and I toss him the keys to the ShoeZeum. And I said, why don't you go hang out in the ShoeZeum and have your daughter pick you up in there? And he smiled and said, thanks. And then I tossed him a Sharpie, and I said, do me a favor and sign your favorite shoe. So Tinker goes into the ShoeZeum. I head off to the airport. I say goodbye to Mark Parker, the top 6 people. They leave, and I head back to the ShoeZeum, and Tinker's there with his daughter and her fiancé. And I have no idea what shoe he autographed. We hung out for another 20 minutes, took some pictures, and then they took off. And then I immediately went through about 2,000 pairs of Nikes looking for the one that he signed. As it turns out, he signed the Air Jordan 3, white and cement. Check him out. His signature is so creative, so cool. He actually takes the E from his first name, extends a line out that goes through a whole bunch of letters in his last name, as well as the R in his first name. And you can see that Tinker wrote a really touching message. He said, thanks for the revived memories. You're amazing, Tinker Hatfield. When Tinker was interviewed by the San Diego Union-Tribune about his trip to the ShoeZeum, he compared it to the George Lucas Industrial Light and Magic show. And he said that I single-handedly brought back the best memories of his life. Thank you, Tinker, for making the ShoeZeum possible. It could have never happened without him. So 9 months later, the Concord Air Jordan 11 releases around Christmas time. And I don't know if you remember, but this shoe caused riots nationwide. People were flipping out trying to get their hands on this pair of kicks. Tinker actually showed up at the Nike Town in Portland to surprise the people that had been waiting in line and autograph their boxes. I wasn't in Portland at the time, but I saw pictures of it on Nice Kicks and Sneaker News, and I thought maybe I can email Tinker and he'll sign a box for me. So I sent him an email. He said, sure, send the box over. I sent them to him. This is the box that he signed for me. You can see that the signature is much bigger than it was on the Air Jordan 3, so you can really get a look at the details of it. And about a month later, on my birthday actually, this shoe showed back up, and I love it. And they were on display in the history section of the ShoeZeum. Sort of as part of an exhibit that showcased the riots and the craze that sneakerheads will do to get their hands on a pair of J's or foam posits. So who knows what Tinker has next up his sleeve. We know that he's part of the Air Mag, and the Air Mag self-lacing is supposed to come out in 2015, but I bet we're going to have a whole bunch of more cool stuff coming out soon.